Hello everyone, I'm Nigel Saunders, and today we're going to be working on my lemon tree. It's been just over 2.5 years since this tree was repotted. Today I'll be working on the upper structure of the tree and then repotting it. I want to grow the tree for the summer, but I also want to keep the upright trunks in balance, so one trunk doesn't get too thick compared to the others. The first operation I'm going to do today is to defoliate the tree. There's some new growth just starting to come in quite a few places on the tree, so it's due for another growth spurt. So it's a good time to prune the tree back and then allow that new growth spurt to come in. All the leaves on the tree now are large indoor leaves. And you can see they're almost the size of my hand. By removing all the leaves and having new leaves grow in, they'll be a lot smaller. So here I go, I'm going to defoliate the tree. Always smells nice when you're pruning it. Leaf pruning like this should only be done on a healthy tree, otherwise it could cause the tree to die. After defoliation, you can see it looks more tree-like without those great big large leaves on it. You'll notice on my upright trunks that I have one dominant trunk here, and then I have a medium thickness trunk here, and then a very skinny one here. So I want to try and equalize those a little more. They don't have to be exactly the same size, but I don't want them with this much difference. I have to take vigor out of the thickest trunk, so prune it down hard. My medium trunk I'll prune somewhat, and my smallest trunk I won't prune at all. And that'll help balance the thicknesses of the upright branch structure. When I'm pruning this thickest trunk down, I'm looking for leaf nodes to prune the tree back to because this growth is still green. If it was thick woody growth, I could prune it off anywhere and it would sprout new branches. I'm going to take this main trunk off right here. There's a leaf scar here, so I'm going to prune it off just above that, like that. On the other side of the main trunk, I'm just going to prune them back approximately the same height. I don't see too many good leaf scars. There's one there. I'll have to take it back to here. And there's one maybe to here. They're a little higher than I want them, but there's not much developed down below that I can prune it back to. I could go right back to here. Maybe I should. I'll go right back to here. And the other one, there's a scar at the back that I could prune it to. And I think I will. I'll take it right back to here too. So that's some pretty hard pruning on the thickest trunk. On the medium thickness trunk, I'm going to prune it back to here. On the smallest trunk, I'm just going to prune these longer branches back to a leaf scar, just lightly, to there. Here's a shot of the tree all pruned up now. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup work on some of these stubs that are left over from previous prunings. I had to mix up a fresh batch of soil for the lemon tree repotting. I didn't have any composted pine bark or fir bark, so I'm just going to use half perlite and half turfus. All the materials are sifted through a screen to remove the fine particles. So this is my soil that I'm left over with. The first step in repotting will be to remove all this lovely moss from the surface, but don't worry, it'll grow back again. As I pull the moss away, I'm seeing lots of ants and lots of surface roots that are growing up into the moss. So the tree is definitely due for repotting. Next, I'll go around the edges of the pot and loosen them up and try and remove the tree. It's packed in here very tightly. As I said, this has been 2.5 years in this pot, or just over 2.5 years. So it's definitely due for a repot. And it gives me a good chance to work on the roots, balancing them, picking out the good roots and removing the ones I don't like. So here we go. Let's get it out of the pot now. There we go. Whoa. Lots of roots everywhere. I'm going to start now combing out the surface roots. I'm going to have to decide if I want to keep it in the same pot or change pots. Maybe the roots will help me decide. If I think it needs more root space, I'll put it in a larger pot. If it looks okay, we'll just keep it as is. As I'm raking this, you will notice I am ripping crossing roots and keeping the radial ones intact. And that's an important part of combing the roots, is you will damage roots. You will rip through all the roots that cross and roots that are tangled. But in the end, you'll get a nice radial root base that's all sorted out and looks really miniature on a tree. You want your eye to go from the soil level, curve up into the trunk, and up the tree to the branches. So that's the top combed out pretty nicely. I'm going to flip it over now and start on the bottom. The roots aren't actually too packed in here. They're actually at a nice level. You can see I can comb them easily. They're not jam-packed in that I have to use a saw or anything to loosen them up. Just, you know, gentle raking with the root rakes, getting them all loose and flowing. One thing you won't pick up on the video is the nice smell, that citrusy smell I'm getting right now, which just adds to the enjoyment of pruning your lemon bonsai. I'm going to give the roots a wash now. I've washed the roots and now it's time to do a detailed combing. Getting them all untangled and raked out. You can see some roots have gotten quite long and have, you know, grown with a lot of vigor. So we want to balance the root system just like we balance the top of the tree. Pruning our thickest roots hard and letting the finer ones grow. The roots are quite nice, flat and radial. I think we did a good job root pruning this tree last time. I'm going to start the root pruning on the bottom. There's a lot of roots that have grown down and across the center of the root base that can be pruned off. Like that one. That one. And I'm just pruning them roughly for now, and then we'll go in and clean it all up. Another thick one here. A big long root. Any roots growing straight down from the base of the tree, I want to remove. I want all my surface roots to do all the work feeding the tree, and that way you get a nice trunk flare. Still a few congested areas here that I've got to fix. Just getting rid of all the downward facing roots, keeping our nice radial roots. Getting a flat root base on the bottom, and the top will curve gently into the soil. Comb out our roots again from the top. Okay, so the rough root pruning's done now. Now we got to go in and do all our detail work on it. Give it a water. Make sure they stay nice and moist. Okay, here I go now in the detailed work. Let's start with this root. It comes out from the trunk. It kind of snakes around. And it's got a root that's kind of growing in and across here that I'm going to remove. There we go. I've got another root that's beside it here that kind of grows underneath, so we definitely want to encourage it to grow on this side. Just going to untangle all these. There. They're growing quite well. There's a root growing on top here I don't like. Over here, I'm going to remove it. like that. I want to get these roots to flow into the ground, so I don't want anything sticking up too high on it. This root here is starting to get a little thick on the end. I remember last root pruning, I took quite a piece off the side here, and that's healing over nicely. There's a root here I can remove. I eventually want to get this root base to the rule of one root dividing into two, and I have it one dividing into a whole bunch here. This root certainly is quite long. It could be cut back so we get subdividing earlier on in the root base. It does dip down a little here, so we could prune it off there and get rid of this whole long section here. Just seeing what that would look like. Yes, that would look better in the future, possibly. This root does look quite nice because it's got mature bark on it. Maybe I should keep it, I think. It's tough to get roots with mature bark on them like that. It'd be a shame to prune it off and, you know, develop roots closer to the trunk, but we do have to think what's good for the future of the tree. I think I'm gonna have to cut that off. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna do it. So here I go. I'm going to have to, I want this to flow into the ground eventually. So I'm gonna cut it right here. Like that. So we'll grow a whole bunch of new radial roots coming off of here, and it'll flow down into the soil better. I could prune this root off also. It is becoming a problem. I got knobs on the end of it. And I do have a root back here, so this main root will divide into two here. I could remove that completely. And I think I will. So here goes. There we go. That's going to help the roots flow into the ground better. I think the rest of the roots aren't too bad. This one sticks up a little high, but it's not too bad compared to these ones. It's in a good root plane. I think I'll just prune around the outside, kind of balance it a bit, and that'll be it. So let me do that. By pruning around the outside like this, the roots that have grown towards the outside get pruned a little harder, and the ones that are developing on the inside don't get touched at all, so it helps balance the root system. That looks pretty trim. I'll have to test fit it in the pot and see how it fits. Before I plant the tree, I want to rotate it around, checking for alternate fronts, something that looks better. And I'm kind of liking this as a front of the tree. It has the thicker trunk up front, which is nice. The back branches or trunks fan out nicely. This was the front here, and I don't know, it's okay too. Tough decision. But I think I will plant it this direction. I think that's a better front for now. So let's get planting. If this is the new front of the tree, it'll have to go in the pot like this. So I'll have to do a little bit of trimming front and back. And a little more off the back here. That looks good. I'm checking the tree now for position in the pot. Because most of the mass kind of leans towards the left-hand side, I want to move the tree slightly to the right. So I'll do that. So we'll just shift it a little bit over. Maybe to there. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. It's just off center, the main trunk, but the balance of the tree is almost on center. The height in the pot, it looks a little low, so I'm going to raise it up a bit so we see a bit of the surface roots. That's pretty good there. I like that. Okay, let's fill it in with soil. With this nice dry soil, it's just flowing in around the roots really nicely. So I'm just getting rid of any air pockets in there. The tree's firming up in the pot. I've got the tree settled into the pot really nicely now. It's nice and firm in there. So now it's time to give it a good watering. There we go. There we go. I'll show you the roots at the back where I cut them back severely. So you can see them, how they kind of go into the soil. I may pile a little more soil up on there so we get some good roots coming down into the soil there. Just put a pile up here. There we go. And then I'll water that. That'll help those roots heal. There'll be new roots growing down into the soil from the cut points, and it'll all look quite natural someday. So back to the front of the tree. That's all the work I'll be doing on the lemon tree today. I'll be taking really good care of it so it recovers nicely and begins growing again. I hope you can see it's starting to look a little more tree-like. It's not just a stick anymore. It's got a bit of a canopy on it now. So I think once the smaller leaves grow in, it'll start to look like maybe a tree for the first time in its life. It's time now for today's update. Today's update is my tiger bark ficus, and it's sprouting new growth and doing well. So I just thought I would show that to you. This little tree was severely root pruned and top pruned to get a short, stubby trunk, and will grow a nice canopy of branches up here. So it's got a nice pleasing line to the trunk. It just needs to be developed now. It's time now to check out our viewers' picks. Today's pictures come from Mark in Belgium. He's got an interesting variety of tropical trees. So thanks, Mark, for sending in those pics. That's all for today. So Nigel Saunders, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.